Welcome to the Fantasy Football Factory Podcast Playoff Edition presented by the great folks at Miller Lite. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Mintz, joined as always by Steven Cheah.
How are you doing, buddy?
We're banging this thing out late Sunday. We're actually taping this late Sunday night after the Cowboys and Washington football team because we hope all of our listeners, everybody and our followers had a Merry Christmas and having happy holidays. I know you're packing your bags because you're getting ready to go out west to Arizona.
Yeah, so we normally tape this Monday morning in the office. The office obviously closed post-Christmas. I'm flying out to Arizona in the morning. Big week out there, Arizona Bowl. I'm going to be out there for the dozen trivia competition, which should be fun. And having a little getaway with my wife there as well. So looking forward to just a little bit of a break from the hectic daily life. But a crazy week in fantasy that we absolutely have to recap as soon as we tell you about our friends at Miller Lite. Miller Lite is our presenting sponsor, the absolute greatest light beer in the game, the reigning champion of light beers, and they want to cheers to keeping things uncomplicated. Since 1975, Miller Lite has been the beer with taste you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just great beer for people who like beer. People like you and your friends, and whether you're in person or not, you can count on Miller Lite to bring you and your friends together for Miller time. Miller Lite has great taste, only 96 calories. And you can go to MillerLite.com/fantasy to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. And of course, celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. And let me tell you something. It was Miller time a lot in Cincinnati, which we're going to get into shortly. But I think we have to start in Carolina because that is where it became official that the NFC South now runs through Tampa. A claim that you made did not happen, which you made on Halloween, that the NFC South still runs through NOLA. Not the case. Tampa Bay Buccaneers division champs for the first time in 13 years since I was a college senior.
RIP, the NFC South running through NOLA. Great run, 2017 through 2020. Not easy to win an NFL division 4 times in a row. Got to say, love the run, enjoyed it, but it's no more. And Tampa Bay, not just winning the division, when you concede defeat, it's also, week 15. There's still week 16. So there's still 2 weeks to get in the season, and they already clinched it. They earned it. I do take solace in the fact that the Saints beat the shutout Tampa last Sunday and went 2-0 against them. So at least it makes it sting a little less. But the Saints this year were nowhere near winning the division. I did chirp on Halloween, and they lost 5 games in a row. And there's just really no way to win an NFL division if you lose 5 games in a row. So it's
2017 to 2020. So that was
it started the
Minneapolis Miracle, right?
Yep, Minneapolis Miracle the first year.
Rams.
Second year was the Rams thing. The third year they lost at home to the Vikings in the divisional round playoff.
Oh, yes.
That was when Taysom Hill was the only person to do anything, and Drew Brees really sucked in that game.
Yep.
In 2020, we all know what happened. The Saints were beating the Bucs 20-10 in the third quarter when that rat bastard
Antoine Winfield Jr.
Jared Cook put the ball on the ground, and the next thing you know, Tampa ripped off 20 points in a row. And yeah, the Saints. Look, you always make fun of it, but the Saints have been a spectacular regular season team. It hasn't carried over to the postseason, but they have been. They're 49-15 the last 4 years in the regular season, but no NFC South title. And as long as Tom Brady's playing in decent health, it's going to be kind of hard to win one in the next few years too. To be very
I would bag on you for the regular season success. But we actually do you really hang banners for regular season success? The Bucs do in their practice facility, their indoor practice facility. They have banners for NFC South division championship. So hang another banner. We're bringing it back to the one Buck Place indoor practice facility.
Yeah, you got a shot at more banners though, for sure with this team right now.
We'll see. Pretty banged up. Injuries left and right.
Weeks, though. The thing with Tampa, though, yeah, you are very banged up, but man, breaks pretty nice already having the division title wrapped up. And then, when you really look at the last 2 weeks for the Bucs,
cupcake schedule.
Yeah, not just cupcakes, but you can't get the 1 seed. I mean, how worried are you about the difference between 2 through 4 anyway?
So I was actually thinking about this, and 4 might be beneficial because you're going to play the Cardinals. And that's a team that just has first round exit written all over them right now. I mean, they're looking bad. Even yesterday, so we're taping this Sunday night. So even the Saturday night game against the Colts, I mean, how many points they missed due to kicks? Was it 10?
No,
it was Colt McCoy not knowing how to turn the laces out on a football when your job is the holder.
He wasn't. Yeah, he was the other holder had COVID.
Right, but still, did you not practice this with a special teams coach at all? Plus Colt McCoy is just he's a lifetime backup. Holding is one of the backup duties. So was he just not paying attention in class for 15 years?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That Arizona showing was they really, I mean, you lost 3 games in a row. In football, it's so much about peak, and fantasies like this too. Momentum, you want to peak at the right time. I mean, heck, Tampa was 7-5 after 12 games last year.
Yeah.
And Arizona, they're calling Kyler Mr. October. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so this is the second straight year that he's had, an injury that's kept him out a couple games, and then he's been not as effective after that injury, which was, as I cited preseason, a worry that I had about him being QB1 because he was a very trendy pick to be QB1. But a lot of that is durability, which unfortunately he did, especially given his size, is always going to be a question.
Yeah, well, on the Tampa side, Antonio Brown, we were big on, one of the guys we were real big on today with no Evans and no Godwin. And Antonio Brown came back 10 catches over 100 yards. I would think you're encouraged by that. Fantasy on his shirt. Yeah,
I mean, Antonio Brown looked really good. He was their only really competent receiver today, and that included everybody. So Ronald Jones can't catch at all. Keyshawn Vaughn had a drop, which is disappointing. Le'Veon Bell got in the mix late, but it was after Tom Brady checked out of the game. But Tyler Johnson, a very popular ad, and I'd cautioned, I'm not super optimistic about his productions. Donut, no catches, no receiving yards. Tough outing for anyone that took a flyer on him and started him. Keyshawn Vaughn, though, who I mentioned in Dear Mr. Fantasy, is a potential keeper for next year because Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones both are free agents, and Vaughn was, mid-round pick 2 years ago, season and a half ago, and they're just kind of waiting on him to develop. He had a 55-yard touchdown run, I believe it was his first carry. Finished the day with 7 carries for 70 yards with a touchdown, but promising showing from an interesting young player.
I'm wondering, fantasy-wise, do you expect the Bucs to still? I mean, they're still gonna try the next couple. I know you're going to New York next week. Jets. I mean,
yep.
Is Brady? They gonna keep Brady out there? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah. They still got a lot of stuff to work out. And one thing, and this was my lock of the year, Mike Evans over 1,500 receiving yards. So he's at 899 right now. So he's had 7 straight seasons of 1,000 yards or more, which is an NFL record. He passed Randy Moss last year. They were tied with 6. So he's at 7. He has a chance to extend the record. Now he has a hamstring issue. My guess is that he plays this week against the Jets. They feed him the ball early and often, and they get him out. I don't want to say get him out of the game, but essentially they're going to pull him and rest him the next week. They could, if he doesn't play this week, they're going to do that the next week. Mike Evans is going to get 102 more yards. It's about how quickly he can do that and how much they rest him, because hamstring issues are no joke. And he has had those in the past, but monitor very closely, if and when he plays, hammer that over under.
Duly noted. Well, Tampa wins the NFC South. Nola, RIP, great run. One person, quarterback, who did not lead you to a fantasy playoff victory is there's been a really fun. It's been a fun storyline. The Tom Brady right now versus Mac Jones right now. Dave Portnoy beating his chest against you. Y'all been going back and forth a ton. Well, the New England Patriots had a monster game against the Buffalo Bills today at home, with the winner being the leader in the NFC East, and Mac Jones at home. And I think he threw up a stat line Tom Brady never threw up in a big game in his entire career today.
Yeah, 14 for 32, 145 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. He did have 6 carries for 33 yards, so shout out to Mac for that ability to move. But a stinker in a big spot too. And I don't want to be too hard on him. I put out a very joking tweet because it's ridiculous for him to be compared to Tom Brady. It is. He's a rookie. They have, I guess you can say, similar skill sets in the fact that they're both not super mobile. They both don't have the strongest arms. They both have a lot of, brains and smarts up here and ability to process information quickly. But for people to just kind of blindly say, Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady, which people that we work with said that, I put out the tweet that got a lot of visceral hate. I was busy watching Tom Brady clinch the division. How'd Mac Jones do today?
Oh, God. That's a good tweet. You've had quite the week on Twitter.
Yeah, so I guess I can address that too, since we were just talking about Saints and Bucs. I put out a film study piece, two plays really, about PJ Williams, the safety for the Saints, being a dirty player, and got a lot of it's close to 900,000 views right now. The video got a lot of interaction because I called him a dirty player, not only for the Godwin injury, but there's a play later in the game where he goes for Gronk's kneecap. And I fully believe that he was intending to take out his kneecap. Leading with his helmet, Gronk kind of slowed up at the very last second, but PJ Williams looked like he was trying to end Gronk's career. And I understand defensive players have to go low, and I endorse that. But I think there's a big difference between leading with your helmet through a guy's kneecap and leading with your shoulder to take out a guy's thigh. There was a lot of back and forth on that.
Deuce McAllister getting involved with the back and
former
forth.
Ole Miss rebel, Deuce McAllister getting involved big time. A lot of other former players agreeing with Deuce McAllister, but then there are some former players that agree with me, like Falcons wide receiver Brian Finneran, who I'm sure is
of course the Falcons receiver.
I mean, so it was certainly a big story. I posted a blog on it on Barstool Sports, the website, which got a lot of play as well. And through sources, I actually know that article was sent to the NFL and reviewed.
Really?
Yes.
No way. I didn't know. Wow.
Yep. A Saints beat writer reported that that PJ Williams would not be fined for the Chris Godwin hit. I wasn't as upset about. I understand injuries happen, and I don't think that it was necessarily. I don't think that he fully tried to end Chris Godwin's season or career or anything like that. But I do think that
the Gronk one was more malicious. You thought?
I thought the Gronk one was more of an issue, especially since he had just injured Godwin. And then Jeff Duncan, who's a writer for something for the for the Saints, wrote an article basically subtweeting me, saying how PJ Williams is not a dirty player, and his entire thesis was players don't try to hurt people. I'm sure PJ Williams feels worse than anyone. And so I just clapped back at him. I mean, he's a credentialed guy. He could have asked anyone on the team. He didn't ask any. His quotes were off of Twitter, and he quoted Rodney Harrison, who's notoriously one of the dirtiest players of all time. So, and Rodney Harrison, the quotes were being used to defend PJ Williams. So I thought it was a very poor job, and I called him out for it. He did not want to get in the mud, though.
No,
he did not. But it was a big week on Twitter for me. A lot of Saints fans. Let me just say this: if you're a Saints fan and you have the Saints what would you call it? The emblem?
The fleur-de-lis.
The fleur-de-lis. If you have that in your Twitter name, you're an asshole. Every person that I dealt with that had that in their Twitter name was a complete asshole. So it's probably a broad generalization. I'm sure there's a lot of great people out there. I know a bunch of Saints fans, Ben, yourself included, that I consider friends, but a lot of assholes out there too.
I think the thing with the Saints, it's one of those things. It stems from Sean. A lot of it stems from Sean Payton, who, yeah. See, if he's your coach, though, he's your guy, and he's got some of that Parcells, like hard ass, because he's a Parcells guy, and he's definitely like kind of cocky and arrogant, and that goes to the team. I mean, you see how Cam Jordan acts, like how cocky and all the stuff that's said, and it's a swagger thing. And it's like when it's your team, you love it. And like, for example, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, there's no way any opposing team's fans can stand that guy. But when he's your guy, he's the guy that stirs the pot. Right. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a fun thing to be a fan of, to be honest, of like a heel team. But the Saints, it's a lot of people hate the Saints. And I can tell the Bucs fans are certainly in that number. Honestly, the entire NFC South hates the Saints because Carolina fans can't stand the Saints either, going back to the Cam Newton stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously the thing. So it's
Let's talk about a former other guy that was starring in Louisiana. That's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the Bayou Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, of course, having a monster day. Joe Burrow finishing as QB1, 40.1 points in standard scoring fantasy, 4 points per passing touchdown. 525 yards passing?
Yeah, the NFL record, missed the NFL record by 30 yards.
That is insane in a fantasy semifinal week, especially.
And to do that too, like we see these huge fantasy performances by quarterbacks, but it's always with the rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't run at all. He threw for 525 and 4 TDs, and all the receivers got in on it. T. Higgins went just bonkers. Jamar Chase, 7 for 125. Tyler Boyd caught a 68-yard touchdown. Joe Mixon had a big game catching the ball and running. And
70 yards receiving from Joe Mixon.
What's up?
70 yards receiving from Joe Mixon.
Yeah. Baltimore just ran out of guys, too. And here's a crazy – so the Bengals scored 31 points in the first half. They scored 28 in the second half the last time they played them because that was when Chase went nuts. They scored 59 points in back-to-back halves against the Ravens. The Ravens, though, it's one of those things. There's a lot of body counts because of COVID, and the Ravens were without their top 3 or 4 corners. I mean, they ran out of guys. And, man, but what a day for the Bengals, though. And I had a tweet that went off on this. What Burrow's doing for the Bengals reminds me of when Breeze got to the Saints. I mean, a lot. Like, you've got just like a losing culture with like kind of fans that expect bad things to happen, but you bring in just like a total winner that doesn't care about the past or anything and just changes everything. And, I feel like Burrow's doing the same thing. Breeze did it in New Orleans in 2006, and I feel like Burrow's in the exact process of doing the same thing. And, all of a sudden Cincinnati, I've got a 10-1 ticket on them to win the AFC North. They're in a really good spot. They got KC at home next week and then at Cleveland, so they don't have easy games. But they've got a great chance to win it. And I think it's one of the stories of the season. And then I think we slang some Bayou Bengals shirts today, too. I appreciate you retweeting that. Yeah,
Bayou Bengals shirts available in the Barstool store. But, yeah, what a crazy week from a fantasy perspective, because you have Joe Burrow, QB1, 40.1 points. Then we've got Joe Mixon, RB2, 28.5 points. And then you got T. Higgins, wide receiver 1, 39.4 points. So if you had a Joe Burrow, T. Higgins stack, you won your matchup.
No. If you started Burrow, you probably won. I mean, 40 points. Now, it was just unbelievable effort in Cincinnati. And, I know that fan base has gone through a lot through the years. I mean, it had to have been just a huge party. And Burrow, he's been a little up and down. Overall, he's had a very good fantasy year. But, they've tried to protect him a lot, though. They've run the ball a lot. They've tried to kind of grind it out. He had that massive knee injury last year. And so the offense hasn't been the most wide open necessarily. Yep. Last week they had that performance where they won 15-10 in Denver. But man, they just nuked them today, and already looking forward to KC at Cincy next week. I mean, what a marquee matchup! Mahomes and Burrow, man, can't wait.
Yeah, so Burrow, we're talking stats because one of my favorite bets is looking at quarterback touchdown passes, and a lot of times when you have the over/under, most of the time it's over/under 1.5 passing touchdowns, and Burrow for the first 8 weeks hit the over on that. He had 2 or more passing touchdowns in every week. But since then, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, and then today, 4. So I know he had the pinky issue, but he's had a rough stretch of, what is this? 6 games where he hit the over one time, and that was against San Francisco a couple weeks ago in that overtime loss. But Joe Burrow rebounding in a big way. And, I mean, he's just a primetime player. Does he own the Ravens? Is it too early to say that? Because he dominated them twice this year in huge spots.
Yeah, today reminded me of he's got those 3 receivers in Cincinnati, and Chase is one of them. Reminded me of what he had. Remember, he had Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall at LSU. And when you got 3 guys, how can even if you have all your guys, how do you cover those 3? And when you got your top 3 corners out, it's just a nightmare when you've got 3 legitimate receivers. And I don't know, man, just super, super impressive. Had to be a rough day for Ravens fans who aren't used to that kind of defensive effort. Josh Johnson, pretty,
solid start.
Oh, very. He had 20 fantasy points.
Yeah. 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. I mean, you can't ask for much more from a guy who wasn't even on the team a few months ago. So certainly admirable performance there. But speaking of admirable performances, Sunday Night Football, holy cow. We had a Fantasy Football Factory parlay. I beefed it. Mintz and I went on, took a couple props put together. I took Dak under 2.5 passing touchdowns. He hadn't had more than 2 passing touchdowns since week 6. He decided to have, was it 4 in the first half?
4 in the game, 3 in the first half.
3 in the first half. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
No, he had 4 in the first half because of the Amari Cooper one.
No, he did 4. Yeah, he did 3. 4 at the end.
The thick 6 and then the Amari Cooper one. But yeah, he went absolutely nuts. 31.3 fantasy points in standard scoring leagues. Just an incredible performance that certainly lifted a lot of managers to the next round in the finals, you would think.
I had a close friend in a fantasy semifinal today who started Dak over Joe Burrow, and he was suicidal all day, and then Dak came out and still did well. He was just I goes up and stays Burrow hadn't been doing that good, blah, blah, blah. But he had to just be watching that Burrow performance in the playoffs with him on his bench.
I wanted to talk about that because I had we use Twitter as kind of a space to draft thoughts here, and I tweeted I'd much rather lose my fantasy semifinal match by 50 than unexpectedly lose going against the Dallas DST tonight because of those 2 touchdowns. So they had the incredible pick 6 by DeMarcus Lawrence, right? Where he intercepts.
And Corey Clement, that was one of those pure block punts I've ever seen. The way
and so they had the block punt recovered for a touchdown later. That got me thinking about what's the worst way to lose in the fantasy playoffs. Is it a surprise defense special teams unit just dominating? Is it somebody laying eggs? Something, and just kind of doing research for this show. I was wondering, Superflex leagues, theoretically, somebody has Patrick Mahomes, a QB2, and then Zach Wilson on the bench. Is it possible that someone debated playing Mahomes or Wilson, played Mahomes, and Wilson scores, 0.74 points more than him, and that would have turned the tides in a match? I doubt that even would, and that thought process would enter a fantasy manager's mind. But what are some of the worst beats you could possibly take?
The one that comes to my mind, because it happened in our league, and it happened more. So now we've got it down to the exact decimals in fantasy league.
Yep.
Used to be before you kind of had whole numbers.
Yep.
So it was 1 point every 10 yards, and if you had 88 yards, you got 8 points.
Yeah.
How it used to be. So we had a league get decided back in the day. it was like a 1-point game, and then the next day there was a stat correction and flipped it 2 points. And so somebody celebrated winning the championship, and the next morning it got changed. And to me, that's when you think the outcome is final and you win a thriller and lose on a stat correct. Like, to me, that's as bad as it gets, I think.
Yeah, definitely the stat correction is going to be the worst. But in real time, do you have any like horrendous beats that you've had? I remember.
Well, I was part of a stat correction one that got me. I think
in a playoff.
Not a championship game, but a playoff game. Yeah, it happened. But it was so long ago, though. I'm old, so I can't. It wasn't recent. I think I've lost in fantasy on like a Hail Mary before, like a meaningless Hail Mary at the end of a game. But I don't know if it was a playoff game. Was
it the David Garrard? I want to say Michael Thomas. That's not it.
I don't know. I think I've lost some of those. There've been some. It's crazy how close these fantasy games end up, though. You just get all these great stories.
Yeah, I lost in a fantasy semifinals, a tight end. Can't remember if it was Chris Cooley or Todd Heap had a 3-touchdown game. I think it was on Monday night or Sunday night, and I lost because of that. And I was projected to win by like a ton. I think it was like 2005. I actually want to look this up now.
So random, yeah. That's the worst way to lose is when a random just completely goes off and ruins it for you.
What are some surprises from this week? Obviously, we had, I mentioned Zach Wilson. He finished as QB4. He had a really long touchdown run. Justin Jackson, surprise.
Who we both weren't too big on today.
I was not big on Justin Jackson. He was playing the Texans, which they lost to. And I would think that that's part of the reason for his great success is that, he's involved. I expected this game to be a blowout. It was not. Rex Burkhead as RB4. This is absolutely wild. T. Higgins is wide receiver 1 is surprising. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver 5 is pretty crazy. What were some of the big surprises that you came across today?
The Higgins one, I know that Baltimore was beat up, but to go off to that level, I can't even remotely act like I saw that coming at all. You mentioned it wasn't a surprise because Jake Fromm and Glennon were out there, but I thought the Eagles' defense was spectacular today. I guess that is a huge surprise. One thing that was interesting, the Cousins thing, that Rams-Vikings over, I was huge on, and it was just a dud first half, but then it ended up big. That's another thing we got to shout out. Not a surprise today. You mentioned the Louisiana guys. Justin Jefferson, most receiving yards in the first 2 seasons in NFL history. That's pretty large stat, but I don't know. That's a surprise. Other surprises today. Well, the Bears winning a road football game. I got to say that's a little bit.
With Nick Foles, a quarterback. In the snow in Seattle. How often does it snow in Seattle?
Yeah, that was a good comeback, especially scoring going for 2. What was not a surprise was what happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers at all.
Shellacked.
They hadn't scored a touchdown in the first half 5 games in a row.
That's crazy.
They just got bushwhacked by KC, man.
Who was it? Was it Randy Fichtner last year they were blaming for their offensive ineptitude? And, they bring in Matt Canada, who was the quarterback coach last year, promoted an offensive coordinator. He's got all these new ideas. He's going to do more pre-snap motion. Jimmy's and Joe's. Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah.
I remember Canada tried all that at LSU one year and made it through one season, and everybody hated him in Baton Rouge.
But I wanted to bring up another topic about leagues. So you mentioned that you were going to be going to your fantasy final in your big league, which is an awesome accomplishment. Cutting deals. Is that cool? Because like in most leagues, there's going to be a set prize where, first place is going to take the lion's share. Second place will get a little bit. Sometimes third place gets a little bit too.
I'm a fan of no third. I like top 2 getting it all.
What is walk through your scenario, and then I'll weigh in with my thoughts.
Okay. So first of all, it kind of reminds me of when you have a futures bet and you have a chance to hedge. If you've got like a long shot futures bet and it's like, do you hedge sometimes or do you take the face? And I'll say this, the hardcore old school gamblers are going to say no deals, no hedging. That's like part of it when you gamble. And I know Dave Portnoy is going to be one of those guys that says that. However, every gambler, to me, money is a relative thing of value. And money amounts are different to different people. Sure. And like our league is a $500 buy-in league, and its payouts, I'll just say it, it's $4,500 to first and $1,500 to second. That's very large difference. So I don't have a problem with people like, I don't think it's good to go 3K and split it, but maybe you make something where it's like, hey, let's do first 3,500, second 2,500. So you still play for like 1,000 and get money. See, I'm okay with the compromise. I don't think splitting it down the middle, though, is right. The championship's got to be matter.
Why wouldn't you just lobby for that preseason? Like, just say, hey, it's too big of a disparity. Why don't we?
We got some rich lawyers and people in the league, and so they're just like the rich people. They're just like, screw it all at the top. We want to gamble, but like money to those people, 4,500 is nothing compared to what it is to other people. Not naming any names, sure. Especially if they're down if they've taken a beating like certain people have this year. So yeah. I don't know. I think you don't ever split it down the middle because I think that's cowardly. I think the championship.
You can't do that without having played the game.
No, exactly. You have to play the championship for like, you don't want to just play it for pride. I think you can just make it you play for like, you lock up a little more and then I don't know. I can tell by your face. You just say the rules are the rules. Gamble.
No, I think you bring up an interesting point because my initial thought was rules are rules. Like, why would you have not clarified this preseason? But I think that you do bring up an interesting point. Like, if some people are in different financial classes than others, and some people like all of this is, going in as a sunk cost investment, like they expect to lose whatever the buy-in is, 500, whatever the buy-in is, then the money really means nothing to them. Whereas some people, the money would mean a lot to. So I can understand it from that perspective. I don't love it, but I do understand it.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like, I'm not going to split down the middle or anything like that. I'm thinking right now it's 4,500, 1,500. I might say like, let's do 4,000, 2,000 to lock up 500 more, maybe. I don't know. It's a debate. I also think that if you're too much of a coward, you're not showing faith in your squad. And I got a serious squad in that championship.
And also, are you faithful?
I'm red hot, dude. I'm red hot. I got a squad. I mean, I got Patrick Mahomes and Cooper Kupp and A.J. Brown. I feel pretty good about it. So, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not showing faith.
Yeah. An interesting question for sure.
I'm curious. I'd like to hear some listeners all back on that, though. Yes. I'd like to hear y'all's feedback on that because that's kind of one of those things that people don't really talk about that happens a lot of places.
And also, we started the preseason doing this, and this still stands. Slide into our DMs, be kind, of course. If you have a fantasy question, happy to answer it. All we ask is a screenshot of a 5-star review, and then follow our account on Instagram, FFFpod, and we'll be happy to weigh in. It's very tough for people that DM at 11 a.m. or later, really on Sundays. But if it's before that, if it's during the week, no problem. Just because we have Dear Mr. Fantasy that we're doing, and then obviously getting our bets in and everything first Sunday. But if you do it during the week, certainly I will do my absolute best to answer, and almost always do.
Yeah, they usually pile up a little bit for me, and then I answer 10 or 15 in a row, kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's how it goes for you.
Let's talk about guys that are maybe worth an ad.
Speaking of an ad, let's touch on. Let's touch on Echelon. I've been working too hard and not working out enough. Well, I know I haven't been working out enough, at least. I've wanted to be in shape, but don't have time to get to the gym. You hear all these excuses, and everybody says they're going to change in the new year. Well, Echelon's going to make it easy in this time of COVID, especially by bringing your gym home. When you're trying to reach your fitness goals, it can really help to have world-class instructors like Nicole Griffin and Michael Brown choreographing classes of music for your favorite artists like Pitbull. And if you get a community of hundreds of thousands of people who can give you that extra push and accountability, Echelon gives you that. Echelon is the affordable way to get the workout equipment, the workout community, and an instructor's motivation right in the comfort of your own home. Echelon's fitness app provides you thousands of live and on-demand classes with great music from your favorite artists. With Echelon, you can work out anytime, day or night, and crush your fitness goals. Just pick your class, climb the leaderboard, cheer each other on, and give it your all. Echelon's certified fitness instructors are supportive, engaging, and fun, and really know how to get you moving. They have around-the-clock classes for the family, including full-body workout programs that keep you coming back. One membership covers a family of 5. And right now, for a limited time, podcast listeners get up to $800 off MSRP. To get this exclusive podcast discount, text FACTORY to 818181. That's text FACTORY to 818181 to get up to $800 off MSRP. Text FACTORY to 818181. And I feel a tinge of irony. It's a funny transition on this. I know you get in your TB12 mode for the playoffs.
Yep.
I also have. I'm still moving a good bit, but I've slipped on the diet this last month, and we're gonna have to lock it down January and February and get the ship righted so Billy Football can still claim me as a friend.
Yeah, the week 18 schedule certainly helps the stretch out the holiday eating. We've got 75% of an apple pie, some ice cream, some whipped cream in my fridge right now. Might get into a little bit of that after the show. But yeah, playoff mode will be activated. TB12 method is going to happen. So I'm excited. I'm getting ready.
I'm actually mentally ready for it too, because it's January and February are great months to just lock it down and drop weight anyway, because it's going to be freezing and not much is going on, and so it's a great time to focus on self improvement. And I think we're going to have to do that. So
yeah. Speaking of not much going on, waiver wires this week.
Not a lot of big, you know what? Knock on wood, though. Not a lot of big injuries this week, which is good.
Yeah, James Robinson, but are you depending if you're this far in the fantasy season? Are you depending on James Robinson?
Yeah, nothing like what happened to the Bucs last weekend. The thing with the waiver wire, and this is something that needs to be discussed, is how do you deal with the COVID situation in your waivers? Are you just making sure you've got everybody's backups?
Yeah, I feel like you got to, if you're this deep and you're about to play in the finals next week, yeah, you got to get your big guys back up. There are no other option. Justin Jackson, Austin Eckler was a great, example this week where Austin Eckler turns up with COVID, goes on the list, doesn't clear. Justin Jackson just actually slots right in. I didn't believe it would happen. It did. Same thing with Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson. Huntley, obviously the backup to Lamar, but if you just kind of continued to stack Ravens quarterbacks, you would have been covered no matter what the outcome. So that is probably a safer move than picking a whole new team, new position. So yeah, I think that's certainly a strategy that could pay off.
Yeah, I just think you got to be so careful. And I got lucky, and a lot of people lost so many key players to the COVID this week. I mean, Kelsey didn't play.
Killer after he propelled so many people to big wins the week before.
Yeah, it's just a crazy uncertain time. But then you also see COVID. You see some of these defensive performances, like what happened to Washington football team in Baltimore. Cause fantasy explosions.
Yeah. But yeah, next week, Rex Burkhead, I would not add for a final. Dare Gumbawale, 0% owned on the Jags. James Robinson after the year. He was a pass catching back with the Bucs. He's okay. 17 carries, 57 yards and a touchdown today. 2 catches, 15 yards on 4 targets. Not anything I'd be excited about starting in a fantasy final, that's for sure.
I didn't love, so I started Craig Reynolds today because of when they announced Swift out, but Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams got more. I mean, granted, Reynolds still got 11 carries, so it wasn't like nothing. But
right, Amon St. Brown continuing to have huge games.
Yeah, with Nick Boyle out there.
I mean, he's got to be low-end wide receiver 1 for next week, I think.
Yeah, especially if Goff's back. They're playing at Seattle, too. Doesn't have a very good D next week.
Yeah. Speaking of next week, who do you like for next week? There are a lot of crazy lines.
Okay, one thing I got to like, so Matthew Stafford had a horrible game today. 3 picks, was very erratic, barely threw for 200 yards. In his career, I think Mike Zimmer just has his number because he always struggled a lot against Minnesota when he was in Detroit. That was like a huge problem for him. They've got the Ravens in Baltimore, and unless the weather is like awful, you saw what happened to that Ravens secondary today. I mean, you got to feel good about the Rams passing game to bounce back next week, unless it's like 40 degrees and snowing or sleeting or something. Because that Ravens secondary is beat up. So you got to feel good about Cooper Kupp, et cetera. Like I said, man, I mean, I'm starting to tailgate already for this Chiefs-Bengals. I mean, what a matchup. Mahomes against Burrow. That's a noon game. I think that one's fascinating. Vikings at Packers should have some fantasy value. That's a Sunday night one. We'll see what happens there.
High-scoring game when they played.
Yeah, 34-31 if I remember right. I'll tell you what else. Arizona at Dallas. In Dallas, Kyler Murray from Dallas too, played at Allen High School. That one should be very entertaining. You got to think Arizona. You got to feel like if they're gonna show up, it would happen in that game. So those are some of the ones. Browns Steelers is real meh. Giants Bears. There's some rough ones. Jonathan Taylor could kill the Raiders at home. Yeah. That could. And the Colts also, they were without like literally their whole offensive line at one point this week, and I know they're going to be getting some guys back, and that's going to be key. New England's got Jacksonville at home. That shouldn't be any big. I don't know. The Eagles. That's what you mentioned. The Washington football team looks deader than fried chicken right now, and we saw the Eagles shred them last week. So you got to feel good about the Eagles guys against them too.
Did you see the dust up on the sidelines between the two?
So yeah, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, who are both Bama guys and played together at Bama. What'd you think of that?
I mean, I kind of love the move of like mushing his head like that. And anytime that happens, fists have to be thrown. So I think Jonathan Allen did the appropriate thing. I mean, they're both good players in their own right. Certainly had some differences of opinion with Dallas kind of running it all over them. And then last week they also had a tough performance. So, brothers fight.
Look, I think we all forget football. Like we're fans, we're watching it, but it's like when you're in the heat of it, it's like the most intense thing in the world. And these guys put their lives into it. And so if tempers get flared on game day when you're getting your ass kicked, well, good, because it matters to you. And I think we naturally like to sit back and like overreact to that kind of stuff. But like, that's just what we do. We're fans. We're fanatics. But I think that competitive fire is not a bad thing.
Yeah. A couple guys I like next week. David Montgomery, Chicago, I say what you want about them, but home against the New York Giants, I think is a nice matchup. Again, Mike Evans, if he does play, look for him to get fed early and often, 101 yards away from his 8th straight 1,000-yard season. But he does have the hammy. Devin Singletary I like a lot next week. He's definitely the lead back in Buffalo. That doesn't mean a ton because Josh Allen runs for so many yards. But I do like Devin Singletary hosting the Falcons. And then Russell Wilson, who seems like a little bit back, at least like fantasy value-wise, hosting Detroit. I think he's a decent start next week, even though the over-under is pretty low. And then all Vikings players I really like, along with, all Packers players too. I think that'll be another high-scoring game. But Adam,
what do you think of Ronald Jones in New York? You're not as big on him. He had 20 carries today.
Yeah. I mean, Ronald Jones has the capability, but he's not someone I'd be excited about starting in a fantasy final.
Also, another guy to keep in mind, I know he's been banged up, but when he's played, he's been good, is watching Elijah Mitchell, who has a great matchup at home against Houston if he comes back. He's been banged up, but I think that could be a good matchup.
Yep.
If he comes back. But, yeah, that's kind of most of the ones I've got for next week, and I hope a bunch of you guys are in championships.
Yeah, and we are going to be doing Dear Mr. Fantasy early next week. We're going to decide on the time, probably like 10 or 10:30 Eastern, just because Mintzy and I are both headed to watch our respective teams play football. I'm going to be watching the Bucs at the Jets in New Jersey, which is where I live. And Mintzy is going to be watching the Saints at home against the division rival Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and so you're going to just we like to share kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So you're headed to Arizona. You're doing the Arizona Bowl, getting to hang out with your wife, and then coming back and doing Bucs Jets the new year. Yep. I'm running to I'm going to Baton Rouge, actually, to LeBear's Baton Rouge, which is a great Penn property, super fun property. We're doing a watch party. Well, I guess it'll have already happened by the time this airs for the Saints-Dolphins Monday night game. And then I'm going to New Orleans for the Ole Miss Sugar Bowl. And what a doubleheader. Ole Miss Sugar Bowl Saturday night at 8, Saints Panthers Sunday at noon. It's going to be a quick turnaround for the Superdome, but going to be a lot of fun doing New Year's in New Orleans. But expect a bunch of content. And going to be kicking it with Swag Kelly. Chad Kelly, I got invited to a meet and greet event he's doing and going to make an appearance at that on New Year's Day. That ought to be a lot of fun. And actually, rumors, Chad Kelly and I are going to watch the Barstool Bowl together and maybe do some videos with some analysis during the game. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, can't get hyped up enough about the Barstool Bowl, so we may get some stories together in New Orleans to do that. I think
Let's go. Yes, the Arizona Bowl. We got the Central Michigan Chippewas.
Yep.
And the Boise State Broncos.
Jim McElwain, did you see the video about how fired up he was about Central Michigan and like Barstool and the Barstool Fund? I thought that was cool.
Sorry, who is this?
So Central Michigan's head coach is the former Florida Gators coach, Jim McElwain. OC for well, like so many that have gone through the Alabama coaching program. He was an OC there. But he was just talking about how fired up his players were because they love Barstool. They love the Barstool Fund and everything. I thought that was cool. And you know, I can't wait to see this broadcast. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything I've heard for the stories, but I know it's going to be a lot more wide open and wild than about any broadcast they've seen of a bowl game. It's going to be a whole different deal.
Yeah, one might say arms wide open. So I'm excited to.
You get to be in the dozen tournament too, which I'm a member of the Honkers who won the title, and we didn't get the invite to the Battle for Arizona. So I got to say I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, should be fun. Our team, the Yak, is busting at the seams, but if we are locked in, we are still in my mind the best team. Maybe next to you guys because you guys have beaten us twice now. But I'm looking forward to seeing if we can pull this out live and in person. So the lights may be a little bit brighter, but hopefully we can rise to the occasion. But this has been fun, and I want to wish all our listeners a happy New Year, a safe New Year, and best of luck in the fantasy playoffs or the fantasy final this weekend, assuming you're there.
Good luck at the championship. And also, we appreciate y'all support. We did a couple Twitter spaces that I thought did pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. We'll try to make – it's going to be weird juggling schedules with you in Arizona, but we'll try to make a point to do one at some point this week.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks to Miller Lite for sponsoring the Fantasy Football Factory, and thank y'all for supporting this thing all year, as well as Dear Mr. Fantasy, which has been, too much fun every Sunday morning. And wish everybody good luck in the championship weeks and having a happy and safe New Year.
Awesome. See you guys.